Fellas, there are some UFC champions right now that have a big following, they're big stars, and they're just classed as big pay-per-view draws in the UFC. And then there's other UFC champions that I wouldn't even class as being able to headline a pay-per-view. So I'm going to be going over every single UFC champion right now and thinking of a method that they could increase their popularity and just become a bigger star in the UFC. And I'm not just going to do the whole generic be better on the mic. That might be that for a few of the champions, but there's pretty much a unique method for every champion. So let me know your thoughts. And we're going in there with the first champion, which is Jon Jones. Now, unlike everyone else on this list, I feel like Jon Jones is already at maximum popularity. He's right at the end of his career. He's only probably got one fight left against Stipe Miocic, and unless he goes out there and finishes Stipe in like an amazing fashion like he did to Cyril Gane, I don't see his popularity being, massively increased. However, there's one thing I think he can do which is going to massively increase his popularity, and that is to fight against Francis Ngannou in MMA. That is the only thing I can see Jon Jones doing that's going to increase his star power even more. I mean, Francis Ngannou is a household name when it comes to combat sports. Everyone who watches combat sports, whether it be boxing, MMA, everyone knows Francis Ngannou because of his big fight with Tyson Fury. Francis Ngannou versus Jon Jones would be the biggest fight that you can possibly make in any MMA promotion in the heavyweight division right now. It's massive. It's not only one of the biggest in the heavyweight division, it's one of the biggest in the UFC. Francis Ngannou versus Jon Jones. If Jon Jones were to fight Francis Ngannou and potentially even beat him, I think that's quite unlikely at this point, but if he was to beat Francis Ngannou, this massive star in combat sports, that would undoubtedly increase Jon Jones' power, and most of the people that are saying he needs to fight Aspinall, he needs to do this, although a fight with Aspinall would be big, I think if Jones was to beat Ngannou, you can't really complain about his heavyweight career so far. So I think for Jon Jones, he's already pretty big, but physically and star power wise, but I think he needs to beat Francis Ngannou in order to increase his popularity by at least somewhat. Next champion, we've got Alex Pereira. Now, I don't think there's anything significant Pereira can do. Maybe obviously the generic headliner an event in Brazil, but I think the main thing that Pereira needs to do to increase his power is literally just knock out Jamal Hill at UFC 300. He's headlining one of the biggest cards we've had in UFC recently. UFC 300 is going to be a card that is written down in history books because it's 300 obviously, and he's headlining it against Jamal Hill. I think the best thing he can do is go out there and knock out Jamal Hill in amazing fashion in front of everyone. There's going to be so much eyes on UFC 300. It's practically the Super Bowl of the UFC, and he's headlining it. So if he goes out there and knocks Jamal Hill out, he's going to be he already is a big star in the UFC, similar to Jones, but if he goes out there, sleeps Jamal Hill, I think Pereira would be a massive star, and I think he'd definitely be a lot bigger than he currently is. So for Alex Pereira, it's just really simple. Knock out Jamal Hill at UFC 300. Maybe have your next fight in Brazil in a Brazilian pay-per-view. I know UFC 301's in Brazil. He's not going to get on that, but maybe in future try and get on a Brazilian card. But yeah, just knock out Jamal Hill. Next champion, Dricus du Plessis. Now, Dricus is I'm not going to say he's a massive star in the UFC. I think most people know him, or at least most casuals know Dricus for having the face-off against Adesanya. And I think that's exactly what Dricus du Plessis needs to do. Fight Israel Adesanya in South Africa. If he was to fight Israel Adesanya in South Africa, that's probably the biggest fight you can make in the middleweight division. They've got this massive rivalry that they created. Obviously, it didn't go to plan after Adesanya lost to Strickland, but they've got this massive rivalry that they need to complete. If Dricus du Plessis fights a superstar in Adesanya in South Africa, which, that's kind of why they dislike each other in the first place. It was all over the controversy over if Dricus is really African or not, or if Adesanya was African. So if they do an event in South Africa, headlined by Dricus du Plessis versus Adesanya, there's going to be so much odds on it. It's going to be Adesanya's big return, and if Dricus du Plessis can beat Adesanya, he will become a way bigger star than he currently is. He might even be like one of the biggest in the sport because he's fighting a big star already in South Africa. So that's what I think Dricus du Plessis needs to do. Take advantage of the rivalry with Adesanya, book it in South Africa, and you've already got yourself a massive star. Then we've got Leon Edwards. I wouldn't class Leon Edwards as a massive star. I've got two for him. I think more UK cards. I think UK MMA is growing, and I think if we have more pay-per-view events in the UK, it's only going to get bigger. Leon Edwards is a fairly known name around combat sports, so if we have more events in the UK, maybe even in I probably won't have one in Birmingham, but if we just have more events in the UK, I think that's probably the best thing for Leon Edwards. Grow his star power over here. And then the next thing I've got is take advantage of the fact that Bilal Muhammad is one of the most hated fighters in the UFC. If there's one guy that most fans dislike, it's Bilal Muhammad. If there's one guy that, regardless where you're in or where the event is, who's going to get booed, it's Bilal Muhammad. Take advantage of that. We all know Leon Edwards on the mic isn't the best. He's not, you know, one of these wizards when it comes to trash talking. But I think if Leon Edwards can kind of, you know, poke fun at Bilal Muhammad and get the crowd on Leon Edwards' side, and maybe even go out there and finish Bilal Muhammad, he will be doing a job that most people want him to do. Everyone wants Bilal Muhammad to lose, so if Leon Edwards can go out there, take advantage, make Bilal Muhammad the villain, and then beat Bilal Muhammad, I think Leon Edwards' power, star power, will already be increased. I wouldn't even mind if he was to defend against Bilal Muhammad in like a co-main event in a UK pay-per-view. Do that for Leon Edwards, and I'm sure, obviously, you can also increase his mark skills, but I'm not just going to say that for every fighter. So, Leon Edwards, beat Bilal, take advantage of the fact that Bilal's hated, and try and get more events in the UK. Islam Makhachev, one of the biggest stars in the UFC right now. I think he's got like 8-9 million followers on Instagram. Now, for Islam Makhachev, I think he should just defend his belt a few times. Obviously, I don't think this is going to massively increase his star power, but I think he needs a couple more defenses, maybe against Oliveira, Gaethje, someone like that. And then what he needs to do is, I think he needs to attempt to beat Leon Edwards for a double champ status. Islam Makhachev, obviously, there was the whole talk about Khabib Nurmagomedov not going for the double champ status, and I'm not going to be one of these guys that just pushes every single champion to go for the double champ after they've won a belt. But Islam Makhachev, he's already got two defenses against Alexander Volkanovski. If he just racks up one or two more defenses, I would not mind a fight of Islam Makhachev versus Leon Edwards. It's a super fight. It's a dangerous fight for Islam Makhachev, and if he was to go out there and beat Leon Edwards, a 170-pounder, who is a stylistically pretty difficult fight for Makhachev, if he could do that and reach double champ status and be one of the few fighters to actually hold two belts at the same time, that would be massive for Makhachev, and he would be an already bigger star than he already is, because he's already a pretty big star, and he'd be even bigger. So for Makhachev, defend your belt a few times and then go up to 170 and challenge Leon Edwards, or maybe if Leon's lost by now, whoever the 170 champion is, go up to 170, win that belt, get double champ status, and I think Islam would be even bigger. Then we've got Ilia Topuria, again, a massive star. I knew this would happen. I knew if Ilia Topuria was to go and knock out Volkanovski, he'd already be a big star. We saw him, you know, what he's doing in Spain and how big he is in Spain. He is a mega star already, and he's only just won the belt. So there's not too much he can do. But I think first thing is continue being the villain. It worked against Volkanovski. When he's fighting guys, I don't know, Evloev or whoever he's going to fight at featherweight, I think he needs to continue being the villain. Keep trash talking these guys. Keep getting in these guys' head. It works. Trash talk sells, and it's working for Topuria. He's a massive star. If he keeps trash talking and then doing well in the octagon, it's only going to get bigger from there. And the next thing I've done is defending Spain, similar to Leon Edwards defending in the UK and Dricus defending in Africa. I think Ilia Topuria, if he was to defend in Spain, it would be similar to like Conor McGregor in Ireland. Leon Edwards defending in the UK, you know, there'd be fans cheering for him because people like Leon. But I'm telling you, if Topuria was to do the first ever UFC Spain, the crowd there would go absolutely nuts for Topuria. He's one of the biggest stars over there in pretty much all combat sports, probably the biggest right now. So for Topuria, defending Spain, continue being a villain, and I'm actually seeing shades of Conor McGregor in Ilia Topuria. I know everyone says that about every star, but I genuinely am seeing this. So defend it in Spain, and I think that's what Topuria needs to do. Next fighter, O'Malley. A big star already, but I think his mic skills need to be increased. I think he's one of the few champions that desperately needs to increase his mic skills. The performances, they're not a problem. He's going out there and knocking people out. Sean O'Malley's one of the most exciting champions in the UFC right now. So the performances aren't an issue. The issue is his mic skills. This guy is getting outspoken in every press conference. He got outspoken by Peter Yan, Aljamain Sterling. Everyone he's at a press conference with, he's getting outspoken by, and that needs to stop. Even Marlon Vera was outspeaking him at the what was it called? The seasonal press conference. If Sean O'Malley improves his mark skills and gets the fans on his side, like you look at McGregor and other stars in the UFC, when they're on the mic, they're wizards on the mic. They're getting the crowd riled up. They're getting people excited. Sean O'Malley's just not doing that. He's super dull. So if O'Malley wants to hype himself up and bring some eyes to his fights, which because he's an entertaining fighter, I think he needs to improve his mark skills, and that's why I think O'Malley could be even bigger than he already is. I don't even know why he's such a big popular fighter besides him having purple hair and good fights, but yeah, improve his mark skills. And then finally, Pantoja, out of all the champions right now, is the most unpopular. He's not a star. I don't even think he has 1 million followers, and even though I think he could probably headline 301 in Brazil, I don't think any other pay-per-view could headline. So the first thing I've said is headline UFC 301 in Brazil. If he headlines in Brazil, again, he's going to become a bigger star down in Brazil, and if he's headlining a pay-per-view, all it's going to do is bring more eyes to Pantoja. So headline a pay-per-view at UFC 301. He's now had a defense against Brandon Royval, so go out there in Brazil in your second defense. I don't know who he's going to defend against. Maybe it's going to be against like Amir Albazi, but just defend it in Brazil in front of your, your home country. And then the next thing I've done is play villain at flyweight. Very, very similar to Topuri's at this one. Obviously, we just saw Pantoja in Mexico, where he's doing the whole flexing about the fact that he's 5-0 against Brandon Royval and Brandon Moreno. I think he needs to continue playing the villain. Stop trying to be Mr. Nice Guy. Play the villain. Get your opponents... I mean, listen, I'm not saying that the flyweights have got these, extremely popular opponents or anything, but, try and get your opponents mad, get in the head, play the villain, similar to what Topuria is doing, even though he's got limited English, and just, create some excitement in your fights, because right now, the flyweight division is not a popular division. So that's what I think Pantoja should do. Headline 301 in Brazil, play the villain a little bit more. But yeah, that is how I think every UFC champion right now can increase in popularity and, increase their star power. Let me know if you'd, gone through any other different methods, but that's what I think would work best for every champion, and thank you for watching.